Welcome everyone who's already joined us. We will get started. We'll just give it another minute or so, and then we are going to get started. Okay, so we are at 12:01. We have a lot we want to be sharing with you, so we are going to get started. Welcome, everyone. We are really excited to have you here today as we explore leadership skills, time management, and how to prioritize what really matters in your role. We decided to offer this topic because as we're working with clients, one of the things that we hear loud and clear is there are just not enough minutes in a day. And we know that prioritizing your time is something that benefits a leader, but it's also one of the most challenging things to actually get done. By the end of this session, you'll have some very clear steps and tools that you can literally start using the minute we are done. And we think that these tools and just taking the time to be a bit more intentional will allow you to really level up that leadership quality. So the way we're going to roll today, we are going to actually be covering a number of things. First, we're going to take a quick look at where are we investing our time? What are some of the things or tasks that are perhaps draining our energy in order for you to identify what matters most for you in your leadership role? And we'll be introducing you to a tool called the Leadership Balance Wheel in order to support you in doing that. Then we'll explore how to prioritize tasks using the Eisenhower matrix. Some of you may or may not be familiar with it, but we're just going to walk you through on how to use this very powerful tool in order for you to decide what must be a priority, is a must do now, which tasks in our day might have a little less urgency, which could we maybe even delegate, and ultimately which could be deleted in order to afford us more time to prioritize and focus on the things that matters most to our role as a leader as well as to the organization. Finally, we will be introducing a third tool called the Leadership Management Planner. And this planner is there to help you map out and manage your days and weeks more effectively. Finally, we'll tie it all together with how these tools can work in tandem, essentially, and provide a few more tips and strategies just for better time management and priority management. But for context, our session today and the tools that we will be providing you with are directly from one of the modules in our People-Powered Leadership Development Program. And we will be providing a bit more information on that program specifically, as well as have a bit of a special offer for those in attendance and those viewing today. And so we'll have more information at the very end of this session. Just to note, this session is being recorded. So if ever you're not able to see it right through to the end, because it is a time limited offer, just make sure that you catch up on it before the end of the week, and we'll make sure to share the link to be able to catch up with it. But before we get started, I'd like to quickly introduce ourselves for those who may or may not know one of us. I'm Lorianne Duguay, the CEO and founder of People Powered Solutions, where our mission is to contribute to the creation of as many happier, more productive workplaces as possible by helping organizations truly transform and optimize their end-to-end employee experience and develop a leadership team that truly drives real results. With me, I have Sarah, and I'll let Sarah introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Medeiros. I'm an HR strategist with People Powered Solutions, and I build frameworks and programs that optimize workplace culture and development.
Together, we've got about 30 plus years, Sarah, of experience in this space, and we're really excited to share some of the tools that we've built based on what we've heard from our leaders to help better support them in increasing their effectiveness as leaders and thrive. So, bit of housekeeping items. We're aware that many of you might be joining us while grabbing a bite to eat or perhaps transitioning to their next meeting. So we are absolutely okay if you are joining us audio only. There is really no need to share your webcam if you'd prefer not to. We will be asking you to chime in the chat, so please feel free to do so. We do have Julie, one of our team members, moderating the chat. So if any questions do come up throughout the session and you want to throw them in the chat, absolutely, please do that. If we're not able to respond on the spot or within the scope of this session, we'll make sure that we do connect with you through social media in order to provide you the answers to your questions. Also, if you're able to chime in the chat and we're not able to address whatever comment you do put in there, we will make sure that we connect with you to be able to let you know. And again, this session is being recorded, so if you're not able to watch it in its entirety, the link we're going to be sharing with the different tools will also contain, once you navigate to that link for the download, it will also contain a copy of the video recording, so make sure you can review it there and catch up. Or once you've downloaded the tools, if you want a refresher on how to use them, more than happy to just you're more than welcome, I should say, to revisit that link and to download it there. But before we dive in, we'll get you familiar with that chat function. So we would like you to chime in the chat and let us know who you are, where you're calling in from, where you're joining us from, so which city, and just throw that into the chat as we continue with our session. The first thing we want to talk about is what are some of the challenges we're hearing from our leaders in the new world of work, right? In today's crazy, fast-paced environment, leaders are having to balance operational demands with long-term strategic vision. At the same time, we're navigating a whole new world of how to manage remote and hybrid teams, which require new ways of communicating, of engaging with team members. We're also having to manage diverse teams with different expectations and at the end of the day, different working styles, which means adapting your leadership to meet individual needs. And there's growing pressure to lead with empathy and emotional intelligence. It's no longer just about driving results, right? Finally, the only constant these days appears to be changed. It's true, right? The only new reality is that we are living in a world of continuous evolution and change. As leaders, you're expected to stay grounded and adaptable no matter what challenges arise, right? These challenges can make leadership feel a little overwhelming. But the good news is that there are tools and strategies that can help. And that's exactly why we're here today. We wanted to provide you with some tools, some tips, some tricks on how to better prioritize, how to manage your time more effectively and create balance in your day-to-day lives. We'll walk you through our practical tools to help you tackle these common challenges head on and lead with greater clarity and intention. Okay. Sorry about that. Just trying to move on to the next. So as we continue, again, we would love for you to share some of your current leadership challenges. What are some of the challenges that you are currently contending with when it comes to finding balance in your day, finding balance in your week, and being able to work on what truly matters most with your organization in your leadership role? So feel free to chime in the chat and let us know. The first tool we'll be sharing with you actually is a tool to help you figure out where the minutes of your days and weeks go. But let's start by zeroing in on why it's so important for you to identify where you spend your time. Prioritization helps you be more proactive in your leadership rather than just reacting, right? Rather than being in that fighting mode all the time. If you're able to effectively prioritize, it gives you more control over your time and more time to focus on what truly matters. by eliminating some of those unnecessary tasks, those that drain your days, your minutes, and focusing on really what matters, you're reducing the risk of not only burnout to yourself, but burnout to your team members. When you prioritize more effectively, speaking of team members, you'll notice that it provides a level of clarity for your team when they understand what's important and what they should be focusing on, which of course directly translates to a boost in their productivity, their performance, their engagement. You'll also start to notice, once you start to really hone that prioritization ability, that your day-to-day work suddenly starts to align with the broader organizational long-term vision, with the strategy, because you've had more time to be proactive. You've had more time to critically think and be more preemptive and focus on the priorities of the organization and making sure that the work that you're prioritizing aligns directly with those priorities. At the end of the day, prioritization will help you identify those tasks that can be delegated, which can be deleted, as well as free up some of your time to focus on what are some of the things that you want to be working on moving forward. What are some of those goals? So now that we understand why it's important to prioritize, we absolutely want to introduce you to our first tool. The first tool we are introducing you to is actually an adaptation of a tool we use with our coaching clients called the Wheel of Life. With the Wheel of Life, essentially we have people list what are some of the main buckets in your life, your overall life. What are the buckets that are truly important to you? So we hear things usually like family, our finances, our career or professional development, our personal development, my health and staying fit. We'll hear all of these kinds of buckets, and we'll have them put these buckets around the wheel and then do the same exercise that we're going to do with this tool in order for them to get a bit of a plot of where they are feeling like they're doing really well versus where they think there might be room for or an opportunity for improvement. Now, we've adapted that wheel to help you understand what are the different buckets of tasks that you have related to your role as a leader. But instead of figuring out how effective you are, we want you to map out how much time you're spending in a typical week on that particular task, on that particular bucket. We'll walk you step by step on how to complete it. But ultimately, we developed that tool, the leadership balance tool, so that you could first identify in which areas you're currently focusing most of your time and energy. Think of it as a way to check kind of whether you're focusing on the right things, or maybe you're over investing in certain areas while neglecting others. And on that point, in terms of where you're neglecting, just a little note that we often tend to avoid those tasks that we're the least comfortable with. We often tend to avoid those tasks that we're really not sure how to get started. So by creating this plot, you might be able to identify what are some, again, those opportunities of where you have to work a little harder at focusing on in order to strike that balance as a leader. And at the end of the day, it's truly not about being perfect. It's really about just striking that balance and comparing where you are now, but also taking a bit of time to reflect on where you'd like to be. The tool itself was built in Excel, and you'll notice that there's 2 tabs on the bottom of the tool. The first tab is your current state. So it's really to create a map of where you currently are and where you're investing your time. And the second tab on the bottom, if you navigate, it's your future state. So I want you, when you complete that exercise, to think about it in terms of what would balance look like for me, and where would I like to be investing more time? So once you have taken the time, we're going to walk you through on how to actually use the wheel and how to use that tool. Again, it is Excel based. And you'll notice when you open the Excel document, that we've pre-populated 8 focus areas. Those are kind of 8 areas where leaders typically spend their time. But depending on your industry and role, you can delete a specific area if it's not relevant, and you can input one that makes more sense for your particular industry, organization, et cetera, et cetera. But those that we have pre-populated are relationship building, operational efficiency, team development, vision and strategy, communication and influence, self-development and well-being, conflict resolution and decision-making, innovation and in continuous improvement, and relationship building. So these are all areas that typically leaders have to spend quite a bit of their time working on tasks associated to these focuses, right? We suggest to think about your typical week. So not necessarily just the one-off day, but think about your typical week as a leader. And I want you to then, once you've got that Excel document open, you're going to be inputting a number between 0 and 10. Now, 0, it means you're not spending not any time at all on that particular focus area, on that particular task. And it could very well be that it's a focus area that you should be spending more time on. But I really want you to be honest with yourselves and document what percentage by a number. So 0 being not at all, 1 being 10%, 2 being 20%, all the way through to 10 being 100% of your time. It seems that's all you spend your weeks on, your days of the week on. So once you have completed that, you'll be provided with a plot. And that plot will essentially give you a visual of where you're spending your time. I want you to pay attention to that visual. I want you to look at it. Are there areas where you appear to be investing maybe too much time? Are there areas where you're actually spending not a lot of time? Take the time to really look at it and really, really be honest with yourself. Look at it in order to identify where there might be some wiggle room for you to strike a new balance. When you're spending too much time, where are you actually spending too much time, right? Is there a place where there might be room for improvement? Is there a place where there might be opportunity to intentionally spend more time? I'm noticing in the chat, folks, that some are having some issues with some of the different platforms that we are live streaming to right now. And I apologize in advance. I assure you that we do have our team troubleshooting that. So if you could just bear with us. Regardless, we'll make sure that whatever version that worked 100%, which I do believe from what I'm seeing, there's a couple platforms we're streaming on that should not have any glitches or issues. We'll make sure that the video that's shared after has reflects the version of that version of the one that actually worked. So thank you again for your patience on this. So as you're looking at your wheel, I want you to look again, where are there some imbalances? For example, if your team development score was lower, it might mean that you're focusing a bit too much on operations and less on mentoring your team. So is there a new way to balance that time? Can you perhaps on your ideal wheel, when you plot that out, visually compare where you are now and where you'd like to be and figure out what kind of things could you put into place to make sure that you're spending more time there. Just want to share a few other insights from or walkaways that a lot of our leaders get after they've completed this tool. So they may notice that you're spending, for example, you may notice that you're spending most of your time on day-to-day tasks, but not enough on strategic or visionary work. This could be holding you back, right? It might be preventing you. It might be keeping you in that constant firefighting mode because you're not taking enough time to think about the longer term picture, the bigger picture. One of the things, sorry, I'm just going to pause again. If some people have issues with volume, we do ask you to just double check the volume on your device. You might want to consider plugging in some headphones, as well as just making sure that everything is linked to the correct devices. So just, this is us troubleshooting on the fly, but certainly if you're having issues with volume, please check that out. Okay, so again, if you're noticing that your self-development score is low, it could be a wake-up call to prioritize your own growth. At the end of the day, if your self-development score is low, it might also directly correlate to you putting everyone's needs before your own. So I would gander that you're, from a health and wellness perspective, you might also be neglecting that side of things. So make sure to prioritize yourself, put your oxygen mask on first, and to strike a bit more balance relevant to that, because whether we recognize it or not, there will be an eventual ripple effect on your team. Investing in your own leadership development as well is absolutely crucial for maintaining your effectiveness, not only for yourself performance rise, but also for your team and for increasing your level of resiliency in the midst of this constant world of change and upheaval. If one area, for example, like client relationships or problem solving, seems to be taking too much of your time compared to others, which I will say is often the case, it may be worth considering what this is taking time away from, right? And how could you increase your skills, your competencies to better manage that relation, better nurture and help your team take ownership of the relationships, in order for you to have more time and not spend as much time having to problem solve and help them work through whatever relationship issues they might be encountering. And finally, if your wheel doesn't align at all with what's expected of you in your role, this could be a sign that it might be time to, again, shift priorities. If mentoring your team is crucial, but you're not spending much of your time on it, then you will definitely need to figure out a plan to be able to better meet your role's demands, right? All we want you to do is take some time to look at your plot, gather a few insights so that you can then reflect on where you're putting your time and energy to be able to guide you in making the necessary adjustments, but making some evidence-based adjustments, if you will, because you will have the plot to show you exactly where you need to be spending more or less time at. Then that next step is to take action, set some SMART goals to rebalance your focus. You can also ask for feedback on some of your actions that you've come up with, either from your peers, a professional coach, or even any mentor that you might have developed within the organization, in order for you to ensure that whatever actions you've come up with align with and will in fact help you level up, help you strike a better balance. It's great to get someone else's perspective because we tend to approach things and think things and prescribe kind of solutions to ourselves from a very narrow scope. So if we're able to ask perspective of other people, and get that diversity of perspective, that diversity of experience of maybe they've struggled with something similar, it will act as a normalizing agent for yourself, right? So repeat this exercise basically, and you can continue using this balance wheel as often and as frequently as you need to, but especially when you feel there's been a shift, when you feel that suddenly you're feeling a bit depleted at the end of the day, that you're ending the day with more to-do items on your list that you didn't even knock out any of the ones you initially had on there. You really need to work on proactively achieving balance in all of these leadership areas. And it's not only about feeling more in control, it's really about you being a more agile leader, more adaptable, and helping your team become that much more adaptable, effective, and empowering them to step into their true full potential. Again, if there are any questions relevant to the leadership balance wheel, but once you open the tool, you'll see that it's fairly straightforward. You can you input your numbers, you input the focus areas that you're on, and the plot will automatically appear. And again, remember to do that future state so that you can do a bit of a compare and contrast, and figure out a plan and specific action to be able to get you one step closer to that future state, that more balanced state. So without further ado, I will pass the baton over to Sarah to continue walking us through, now that you've figured out where your energy is going, where you're investing much of your focus and the minutes of your days, as you're trying to determine what that action plan looks like. We've got a couple more tools to help you actually implement, map it out and implement and deliver and hold yourself accountable to that action plan to strike a better balance. So Sarah?
Thanks, Lori. So moving to the next tool that we're going to talk about is the Eisenhower matrix, and this will help you prioritize your task within your focus areas. So it's a tool that helps you prioritize what to do based on how urgent and how important the task is. So you'll categorize your tasks into quadrants for what you'll do first, decide when to work on the task as you schedule it for later, delegate it to someone else to work on, or delete a task to eliminate distractions. By using this tool, you can focus your energy on what really matters, the tasks that align with your strategic focus areas, rather than being overwhelmed by some less important tasks. So how you use the Eisenhower matrix is you'll see in the center that there is an axis for tasks that are important to not important, as well as from left to right, urgent to not urgent tasks. And you'll plot each to-do item that you have into a quadrant. So the first quadrant in the upper left is both important and urgent. And so we'll see that's the do first tasks. So these are critical tasks. They're urgent, important things that have to be handled immediately. So an example might be dealing with a team crisis or finalizing a proposal. The next quadrant after do first is the top right. So that's important, but not urgent. And these are your decide when tasks. They're often linked to your long-term success that don't have urgent deadlines, but they do have a high impact. There are things like strategic planning or leadership development. We might put those off, but they can have a large impact. So the idea is to schedule time for those. Your third quadrant you'll see there on the screen is under not important, but urgent. And so these are tasks that you're going to delegate because they do have deadlines. They are urgent, but they're not important for you to handle personally. So this might be things like routine admin work, low priority meetings, handling routine messaging. Those are things you can delegate. And finally, the final quadrant in the bottom right there is both not important and not urgent. And so these are the things that are really distracting you from things that are more important and more urgent. They're time wasters we often don't realize are really eating up our productivity. So it can be excessive time on social media, tasks that don't contribute to your focus areas. Anything that really is just wasting your time would be in that quadrant there. So we can move along to more specific examples and work through what this might look like in your day. So on the right column there, we have some tasks, and we're going to categorize them into our quadrants. So first, preparing for an upcoming disciplinary meeting. That's urgent since it's coming up, and it's also going to be important for us to handle personally because it's a sensitive and important topic. So it's going to go in the first quadrant of do first. Long-term strategic planning, that's important and high impact, but it's not really urgent at this moment in time. So that's going to go into quadrant 2, decide when, and we'll schedule time to do that later. Next, preparing reports that don't need your personal expertise. That means it's not important for you to handle personally, but it is urgent with a reporting deadline. So that's going to go into the delegate quadrant. And then handling routine email responses or scheduling, that's urgent. It needs to happen soon, but it is routine. So we don't necessarily need to handle it personally. And so that's also going to go into the delegate quadrant. And finally, attending a low priority meeting without a clear agenda or purpose, that's going to go into delete. We can mark it for later so that if it changes and the agenda does become more clear in the future, we can reprioritize it. But for this moment in time, we're going to eliminate that from our list of things to do. And so that's going into that fourth delete quadrant. So those are some examples of what we see people might prioritize in the Eisenhower task, but we know that it can sometimes be hard to delegate or delete tasks. So we'd love for you to share some inspiration with each other in the chat and let us know if there's already anything that's coming to mind that you could delegate or remove from your to-do list right now. So let's take a moment to talk about some common missteps in prioritization and how you can avoid them. So first, what often happens is that we can focus too much on the urgent but not important tasks. So instead, we want to use the Eisenhower matrix to identify those so that we can delegate them. As a leader, delegation is key to freeing up your time for more strategic work. And this doesn't always necessarily need to be delegating to another person. So a pro tip here is think about how technology can free up your time and energy. So for example, scheduling sites, email templates, meeting transcript summaries, delegating some tasks to technology can still save you time and energy. Another common challenge is neglecting those long-term important tasks that aren't currently urgent. It's important to schedule dedicated time for those tasks for the week and try to protect that time. Remember that those tasks are still important and can be really high impact. Third, often emotional bias can affect task categorization. So try to be objective and base your task prioritization on the actual impact of the task and not your personal preferences of what you want to work on right now or your stress levels about how important something feels to you, but the actual impact it will have on work. And often we can fail to delegate effectively, so trust your team and let go of tasks that don't need your personal attention. And we're also going to dive a little deeper into delegation because it is a tough area of leadership for people to master when we cover delegation and coaching teams and performance in our leadership development program. So, effective delegation isn't just about offloading tasks, it's about empowering your team. The key is to delegate tasks that don't require your personal expertise, so aren't important for you to handle personally on the Eisenhower matrix, but they're still important to the team's success, so that others on the team can leverage or build their skills rather than relying on your expertise. Empowering your team builds trust and can increase their confidence, engagement, ownership of their roles. The example we talked about, it's a routine report. It can be handled by someone else, allowing you to focus on higher level decisions. Going back to the balance wheel, it moves your focus area from doing the task yourself to spending time on team development. So the person you're delegating to might need coaching or support to prepare it first, and then check-ins and feedback. Delegation isn't set it and forget it. Regular check-ins to support their progress give your team members a chance to ask for support if they need to. Alternatively, if you are delegating something to technology, you're building systems to make your life easier in the future by investing that time upfront and checking in as you go to ensure that it continues to work properly going forward, rather than repeating all the work yourself every time you complete that task. So now that hopefully there's some less things on your plate once you've delegated and deleted tasks, let's talk about the next tool, which is to plan your time with the Leadership Time Management Planner. So this is designed to help you structure your week and your day with purpose, because we've all been there. You have days that feel like a whirlwind of meetings and emails and putting out fires without any time to focus on your bigger picture. So this planner helps you plan your week around your priorities and your focus areas and block your day into manageable time slots so that you can give enough attention to those high impact tasks. So for example, that we've talked about, it might be setting time aside for strategic planning to ensure that you're thinking long-term and not just reacting to daily pressures. So moving to how to use this planner. So each Monday or the Friday before, whatever works for you, start by blocking off time for those high impact tasks that align with your long-term goals. So it might include your key leadership activities from your focus areas in the balance wheel, like team development for coaching, mentoring, giving feedback. It might be your operational efficiency tasks, like checking in on projects or making process improvements. Whatever your focus areas are, make sure that's reflected here. You're going to schedule your do first and decide when tasks from your Eisenhower matrix. So you can block time for those activities that are important. Ensure your immediate priorities and your longer term goals are accounted for. And you'll also see a section on the planner for delegation. So remember that that's part of your plan as well. Identify what tasks you can pass on to others. Note when you're going to follow up. Add tasks and focus areas from the weekly planner into your daily planner whenever works for you, either in the morning or at the end of the day. And you can revisit them throughout the week. So what's often overlooked is setting time aside for self-development and reflection, because as Lori mentioned, that air mask analogy, you have to invest in your personal growth as well to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So this planner helps you dedicate time for learning, reflection, simply pausing to refocus. At the end of the planner, you'll see a section for your reflection and notes so that you can think about what worked, what didn't, where you might want to make adjustments going forward. Our leadership development program gives leaders tools like this so that you can stay organized and effective. Remember, leadership isn't just about managing others, it's about managing your own time and priorities too. So let's move to common pitfalls people have when they're trying to plan their time. So the first common challenge is trying to find that right balance between your day-to-day tasks and your long-term planning. Make sure you're scheduling dedicated time for your long-term goals, your strategic thinking, and really try to protect that time. You might also be facing a lot of interruptions and urgent issues that come up. So try to build flexibility into your schedule to handle some unexpected events without derailing your plan. Based on your industry, your role, you might know how much flexibility you need depending on when things might pop up and how urgent they might be. But try to build that flexibility into your week, into your day to allow for that time. You might also struggle to stay focused on high impact tasks. So remember to use the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize, to eliminate distractions from things that aren't important and aren't urgent.
One of the analogies that I use is I think it has to do with, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? And I think that's what it really comes down to. It's about figuring out which of these tasks will have the biggest impact, not only on my day-to-day, but on the organization as a whole. Which of these tasks will get me closer to that vision, closer to what I need to achieve and the goals that I need to achieve for our team, our department, whatever the case may be. And just taking the time to reflect on that. But then also, to Sarah's point, carving out time, using the planner to carve out time and holding yourself accountable to those carved out piece of time, minimizing distractions and really carving out time, but then respecting and safeguarding it and making sure that people are aware of those boundaries and people understand. But all the while working in some flexibility blocks where life is going to happen, fires are going to happen, you're going to have to focus on them. So making sure that you're being respectful of that and setting yourself up for success in that you've got some of those blocks. You think about dental offices, medical offices, they have slots in their schedule for emergencies, for things that were not expected, for people who showed up with something that was urgent and unexpected. Well, they've worked into their schedule some slots. As an individual, as a leader, it's important that you also work in parallels. And if there's no emergencies that day, no urgencies, awesome. Then that becomes one of your focus times to work on something that is not necessarily as urgent, but is truly important. So sorry to cut in there on you, Sarah. Just wanted to
please do. I think that was really value added. So feel free to add some real life analogies and metaphors and things. And I think that that's a really good point too, because that reflection is so important to think about how much time do you actually need to save for emergencies and how much are you creating emergencies by not planning ahead for when things might become urgent.
Good point. Absolutely.
Okay, so we'd love to hear more from you as well. If you have any tips for how you stay on track and avoid those distractions that can easily derail your day, share your tips in the chat for how you can stay focused. Do you find yourself spending too much time on kind of urgent but low important tasks, those things that, as Lori said, are not worth the squeeze? Let us know if you have any tips to avoid that or any strategies to share with each other.
Absolutely. If any of you have stumbled on a best practice, have stumbled on something that works really well for you, please enlighten and help others kind of benefit from your lessons learned and or best practices uncovered, which are usually closely linked to one another. So definitely, if you could share in the chat, more than happy to be able to share that with others at the end by maybe we'll put together a one pager on additional tips, tricks, stuff that people have uncovered.
Great. And with that, actually, Lori, I'm going to pass it back to you to continue.
Okay, well, thank you. We really want to make sure, and although we might not take the full hour, which is absolutely fine, what we wanted to do is hop on here and make sure that we're providing you with some very practical tools that you're able to use right away. So to summarize what we've went through today, we first introduced a tool that's really about being able to figure out, where's my time going? because we can't fix what we're not aware of, right? We talk all the time about what gets measured gets done. Well, if you're not aware of what's happening, then how can you fix it? How can you recalibrate, right? So the leadership balance wheel is really how you're going to assess where you're currently focusing your energy and how you create more balance, and identify where you need to create more balance, I should say. Then you can use that Eisenhower prioritization tool to be able to figure out what needs to be done first in what order, in order for me to determine, what can I pass on to someone else by delegating? What is actually a distraction? And the juice is clearly not worth the squeeze. So we can actually just take that one off our list altogether. What can we schedule for later on, and what needs to be done today by the end of the day? So that Eisenhower, sorry about that, a mouthful for my French first language speaking person here. To help you really organize the tasks. And once you've got those tasks organized, we move on to our third tool, that leadership time management planner, which you will use to structure your day and really maximize your days and your weeks, actually, to be able to be that much more effective. As we mentioned, all of these tools are going to be shared with you via a link. In order to eliminate bots, we'll have to have you put in your email and your name, and then you will have access to it'll refresh the screen, and you'll have the download this tool, download this tool, download this tool will appear, and you're welcome to download them. That's also where you will find the recording of our session today. But we certainly do encourage you to take advantage of these tools. We've built them for you, for leaders, to help make you more effective in your leadership job. We are just about to share the link if it hasn't already been shared. I'm unfortunately not looking at the comments, trying to focus on everything else we've got going on. But certainly if
you'll see it scroll across your screen.
Look at it scrolling. Geez, Sarah, you're great. Awesome. So we've done a lot of these trainings, and I know as leaders, we've taken a bunch of these trainings, and in that moment, you finish the training, you're feeling kind of refreshed, you have great ideas, you've had a few aha moments perhaps, but then we get back to work and work happens. So we wanted to share with you, that at the end of the day, holding ourselves accountable to applying what we've just learned and using that information, that newly found knowledge, and transforming it into practice is truly the hardest part. So let's talk preemptively about some of the challenge that will likely arise and why some of these one and dones kind of fail once we get back to work and work happens. We've coached clients through these post, one-off webinars or training sessions, and how to take them and actually transform them into action within your day-to-day, and how to hold yourself accountable. So we thought we would just kind of walk through what are some of the challenges, and here are some tips to preempt them. One of the reasons that these one-off trainings, sometimes we're just taking a session, 1 hour session, that we're not actually seeing them translate when we do get back to work, is because there's lack of that regular reinforcement. It's like a muscle memory, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So we certainly do encourage you to set up reminders so that you don't fall back to your old habits. You can set up calendar reminders or leverage technology, as we mentioned earlier. Print them, save them you can print the tools, save them to your desktop so that you've got them there on the regular. You can review today's content again you can set yourself a reminder to come in and watch the video again, and definitely just revisit it. I'm noticing that I think the link that was shared might have been the wrong link. So we're just going to share the right one here. Rest assured, you will get the right link that will be fully functional. But definitely holding yourself accountable and setting those reminders and cueing yourself to revisit into the future will help you continue to use this. Setting them up on your desktop or whatever the case, their laptop, whatever the case may be, will have you using them more regular. This other reason that it actually is often challenging to integrate whatever knowledge we've taken in a training is that we don't have a lot of real world applicability. So whatever was taught in a way that doesn't necessarily, I haven't had a chance to try it out at work. So challenge yourself to figure out how you can apply this newfound knowledge once you do get back to work. The best way to integrate new leadership skills is really to immediately apply them in your daily work. So set a personal challenge for yourself to try one thing over the next week that you've learned today. one thing today, if possible, but one thing over the next week repeatedly, whether it be the prioritizing using the Eisenhower matrix, or just even getting that wheel done and then figuring out which focus area you want to be focusing on. Just challenge yourself to get that done by the end of the week. And right there, then a reminder for Monday morning to revisit it. So that will help you ensure that you're getting that real world application within your work space and within something that resonates and is relevant to your day to day, which will make it more likely for you to continue using. One of the other things that one of these trainings often fail is that there's lack of feedback. You don't know, you try it, you're applying it in the real world perhaps, but you're not sure how did that actually go well. So it's always helpful for you to get some feedback, be it from a peer, be it from a mentor, as we mentioned earlier. If you're lucky to have a professional coach and have someone actually weigh in from their experience and help you gain perspective that way and set additional growth goals, certainly important to do that and to leverage, because from that feedback, you can continuously evolve. You can continuously level up as a leader by understanding exactly where there's blind spots, where there's stretch opportunities. The next reason that we often will see folks kind of not being able to integrate some of the newly found knowledge, in addition to that feedback and having those adjustments, is that there is no accountability structure. Basically, who is holding you accountable? It's yourself in this case, right? So perhaps you want to figure out a buddy, a peer at work that you can say, hey, I really want to level up leadership wise. I've noticed that I don't focus enough time on this particular skill. Would you mind if we set up kind of a buddy system of sorts where we are going to set some goals and hold each other accountable to actually deliver on it? We're going to regularly review this together to see how it's going, just so that we can be very specific and very intentional on how we continuously try to apply some of this stuff in our real jobs, so that we can truly start to integrate and keep and embody these new skills. And the last piece that I feel that often these trainings don't work is that there's missed opportunity for taking the time to reflect on long-term alignment. So after today's session, I want you to take the time to connect your new skills to your existing skills and processes, and start to think about how you can align these new skills and just the importance of prioritizing, for example, or taking the time to reflect and plan your week out ahead of time with your organization's culture and goals. It might be adjusting your application based on the focus areas, or maybe it's your own specific developmental plan. But at the end of the day, just take the time to reflect and to really see where there might be more alignment. The solutions that we've just proposed will help you get started on the right path. But we also know that it's hard to maintain progress, and it's hard for us to maybe reach out to a peer, and maybe it's hard for us to figure out, who could be a mentor, and then start to build those relationships up at work. And so, if it is something that you're looking for a bit more support on, then certainly it's essentially why we built our program, our People Powered Leadership Development Program, the way that we did. We built it as not a one and done, but a 12-month, 1 year, done for you leadership development program. It's really to provide that ongoing support, that guidance, that accountability every step of the way as you set some growth and development changes, goals for yourself. But then you have people there to help you address any challenges that you might encounter, which you will encounter inevitably along the way. And in that you've got someone there to coach you through some of those challenges. So the last part we wanted to talk about is really briefly, what is our program? The People Powered Leadership Development Program, as I mentioned, it's a 12-month long program. It's literally founded on our 3 principles of connect, coach, and train. So the idea is, on a monthly basis, you have a self-paced learning to complete, an e-learning, which is housed in your virtual classroom that you're provided access to. You complete that learning, which includes some self-reflection pieces. Then about 2 weeks later, we have our first live webinar, which is 2.5 hours. And on the next slide, we'll show you what the topics are that we cover throughout the year. You're also matched with a a buddy. So that becomes your buddy, your peer for the 12-month period, someone you can bounce ideas off of. But in addition to that, after the live webinar, we provide you with a challenge to go and apply whatever we've just transmitted or taught you in the workplace. We've got these micro challenges that you apply to really start to see how this resonates and how this becomes part of how you can start to embody these new skills within your current work environment. And then we have a mastermind where everybody comes in who's in the cohort. They come in and it's a 1 hour laser focused group coaching session where everybody brings a problem. They get 10 minutes to say what their challenge is based on maybe it's the micro challenge that had you encounter something that you're like, I'm not really sure how to deal with, or maybe you have a people related challenge with one of your team members at this point that you want to discuss. So you bring the challenge, and then collectively with that beautiful diversity of perspective, people troubleshoot it, and you leave with a bunch of strategies to help you better navigate that challenge into the future. In addition to the self-paced learning, the virtual classroom, the buddy peer mentoring, as well as the group mastermind sessions and the live sessions, we also match you with a professional coach throughout that 1 year period so that we can start to really hone in on what are some of those growth opportunities, what do I want to do about it, and how am I actually going to grow and evolve and level up relevant to that particular skill or those particular goals. And then your coach holds you accountable on a regular basis. So when you think about the values that we're seeing here is not the costs. It's really, this is what, if you were to buy these services or access 12 separate e-learnings, access 12 different workshops, access a professional coach, et cetera, join a mastermind, which is the variation, which essentially is that community kind of leaders that you collectively troubleshoot. This is approximately what you would be looking at if you were to do it piecemeal and you'd be purchasing it. I mentioned that we would show you some of these modules and what are the 12 modules and the focus areas for the 1 year period. They're on the screen now, but we'll also certainly share them. They are available on our website when you do go into, if you do decide to move forward and consider registering someone from your team, perhaps registering yourself, maybe yourself and a colleague to the program. We offer the 12-month program, which are that done for you kind of solution where you're supported for a 1 year period as you hone your leadership skills, as you set your goals with your professional coach. You've got your live webinars, you've got your self-paced e-learnings, that virtual classroom where you can continue to communicate with your cohort on a regular basis. And on that note, we accept only 30 leaders per cohort, and we have 3 cohorts per year. And we do have a fall cohort launching on November 12th. And we're, again, accepting 30 people only because we like to keep our cohorts to a size that truly allows that valuable and powerful personalized one-on-one coaching, that dedicated laser focused group where everybody gets their full 10 minutes, for example, or if someone needs a bit more, then we accommodate that as well. But there's also that tight-knit longer-term network of leaders that becomes your community, because one of the things that we hear loud and clear when it comes to leadership is that it can be a very lonely place. So we want to set you up for success in that role. And so we offer all of the above, that full package. It's $8,500 for the 1 year. But one of the things that we want to do as a thank you for joining us today, if you register by the end of this week, so by the end of close of business Friday, we are going to offer you an additional $1,200 discount on the program. It's a limited time offer, as we mentioned, which expires end of business October 25th. So if this is sounding like something that you'd like to get involved with and something you're leaning towards, here's what you can do to get started. We're going to share our link to the leadership registration page, which has more details. Read through the details. And when you choose to say yes, just complete the registration. But once you complete that registration, here's what happens. And on that note, if you're leaning towards yes, but you've got a few questions, once you complete the registration and you submit, there's no payment at that point. What we're actually going to do, if you have any questions, we'll make sure that we address any of your questions. And then once we've addressed your questions, if you're feeling it's a fit, then absolutely you will have, at the very least, by having registered this week and submitted this week, you will have locked in those savings. And however, if, once we've had a conversation, you feel like maybe this isn't a fit and it won't allow you to achieve the outcome that you're related, that no worries, we'll leave it at that. But at the very least, by having that offer code balance entered along with your registration form, then you will have locked in those savings, even if it means we are only able to have a conversation, address your questions, and you decide on Monday to go ahead with it, then that's fine. But at least you will have submitted the registration and locked in those savings. So certainly if you're leaning towards a yes, then just go ahead. I think if you think you want it, take that action now and complete that document, just submit the registration form, and then we can continue the conversation. You can send us your questions. Also, if you have a colleague or a friend who couldn't make it for today's session, but you think that they'd like to join the program, send us a note, send us an email to let us know that there is someone who's interested, and we would be more than happy to offer them a special referral rate because they were referred by someone who was in attendance today. At the end of the day, it's always such a powerful journey to go through that 12-month period and to see these leaders set some personal development goals, some professional development goals, but then to be able to hold each other accountable and support each other through the different challenges, and to have this variety of perspective, this variety of industry at the table. We tend to troubleshoot things from a very industry specific lens. And for example, if we're in the public service, we always manage things through this way, and this is how we do it. To have variety of perspective by having someone maybe from a private sector, someone from the industrial sector at the table, they give you ideas that you never thought you would have, and it's just a all-encompassing, supported way of truly leveling up your leadership journey. So again, we'd love to have you join us. If you're interested, definitely visit the site, submit your registration form, and we'll get you set up from there to make sure that you're ready for launch day, which is happening on November 12th this year. So I think that pretty much covers everything we've talked about. If you do have any questions for us, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I know we are almost at time, but definitely, even as we're wrapping up here, I'd love for you to share what your takeaway is from today. What was one of those maybe aha moments? Which tool or tip resonated with you most? So if you can also throw that in the chat, we would love to hear more about it. But certainly we look forward to prospectively reaching out to you and answering any questions you might have relevant to the content today, and or if you're interested in joining us. But we do want to thank you for taking the time out of your already busy day. We know we've covered a lot, and we hope that you've found some valuable tools you can start using right away. If you have any questions, please, please, please don't be shy to reach out. We're also sharing a link to our calendar app. So if you wanted to book some time with us to have a conversation, to address any looming questions, then we're more than happy to do that. So please take advantage and book some time into our calendars. And I want to thank my co-host, Sarah, for helping us kind of convey and transmit and walk you through some of these tools, as well as Julie for moderating the comments and the chat.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us today and spending your time with us. Thanks, Lori, for walking us through those extra tips and tools for everyone.
Amazing. Well, thanks everyone. Bye.